This latest bit about Facebook and data sharing with partners, it seems to me that the core issue is Facebook has always been about more sharing is good.
Right.
Don't worry about sharing. It makes your life better. And now it's clear sharing doesn't always make our lives better, but Facebook doesn't seem to have entirely changed its message and its modus operandi. It claims, oh, we dealt with the problems before, really it's okay now, but more and more stuff keeps cropping up.
A lot of this is about kind of sloppy management of the platform. And I think some of the things they're doing to integrate with partners is fine, because it makes it easier to make one thing, everything works with one another. Your Android works with your Facebook, works with your Spotify, and there should be some sharing among these companies. So that's a fair thing to say that Facebook should do. I think it's just the disclosure and how they do it and what they give away. Every time it seems they give away too much, or you don't know what you're doing, or you're not getting consent. And consent is really difficult here because it's complex at the same time. But the problem is their business is based on them having enormous amounts of information that they don't buy and sell your information. Technically, they don't do that, but mashing up all kinds of information. And Facebook's is at the nexus of it, and I think that's why they're getting all the criticism. And
consent is tricky when it comes to tech companies. We've all seen these terms of service that hardly anybody goes all the way through. But it seems odd to me that on the one hand, individuals didn't seem to really understand what was happening to their data. And the companies Facebook was sharing the data with are largely saying, we didn't really want all that data anyway.
We didn't look
at, so what was Facebook doing, not really informing either side of the data confetti that was going everywhere?
They struck these massive partnerships, and there's so many partnerships. I think it was run by Dan Rose for a long time, who has since left Facebook. But there's so many partnerships, mobile partnerships, there's search partnerships, there's all kinds of things that integrate with Facebook. And so I think they were striking these deals, and some of them are complex, and you sort of give away things you don't necessarily mean to give away, or people aren't interested in, and it's just part of these complicated partnerships. And I think what happens is when looked at from above, it looks terrible. It looks like what they're doing is giving away everything about you. And in many cases, they're not. I'm trying to be fair to Facebook here because it is their business. Their business is advertising, and therefore they've got to be able to target customers in the same way. But it creates a real problem because they are at the nexus of all this information, and that's what they don't get. And then they sloppily did some of these deals. They didn't close them off, they didn't have them. Same thing, Cambridge Analytica is one thing, but there's all kinds of partnerships they did that they didn't end properly, they didn't clean up, and that's really
the constant drumbeat of stories.
Yes, exactly.
Which seems to continue, and this idea that management certainly doesn't seem yet to be on the right side of this. What, in your opinion, is the risk in terms of the regulatory side, which would seem to be what investors are at least most concerned about?
Right. I think they're going to attract regulatory scrutiny, because I think regulators don't think about things in a fine-tuned way. They think of it in a hammer way, and so they're going to hammer Facebook. And when they see these public, the New York Times, and everybody follows it, it creates a sort of swirl around Facebook that affects the stock market, whether they can make as much money, whether they can do as much targeting and things like that. And so people worry. Sometimes unnecessarily, but at the same time, because there's still a juggernaut, let's be clear, you know that, you and I know that there's no choice but Facebook and Google in digital advertising, right? And so what happens to that, and what can they do? And so the question is, can regulators do smart regulation? Probably not. No. Right? And so they're going to hit it with a hammer, and then you're going to see problems.
Should more of the scrutiny be focused around things like antitrust? And I asked that, I'm looking at this Greg piece, Beware the Big Tech Backlash, where he basically argues that it's the big tech companies becoming bigger and bigger, even with regulations like GDPR. Yesterday on our air, we had a pretty lively debate about Facebook and the data sharing, the fact that a lot of these partnerships are with the other big tech companies. This idea that maybe it's stifling innovation, it's making it harder and harder for smaller companies.
That is a really smart and interesting discussion to have. Is these are these giant, to me, I liken them to semis that are, I say this all the time, that are going down the highway. Where are the new innovative companies right now? They're not around. You don't see, there hasn't been an Uber or an Airbnb in years, right? So what is happening that the startup ecosystem doesn't seem quite so lively as it did? And it may be because these big companies, when you think about companies, they're going to get bought. Like someone was talking about Pinterest the other day. Well, maybe they'll get bought. This will happen. Some of these are going to get out into the public, like Uber, possibly Airbnb, and others, and Lyft. In the next cycle, but where are the next companies coming from? And
it's funny you mentioned that, though, because this Juul deal today, I know they're out your way, and you may know them, two Stanford professors, now obviously not in the social media world, $38 billion value. Altria invests $12.8 billion.
I know.
Not a control position, no path to control for them. But these guys are not, by the way, to your earlier point, they're not going public anytime soon. They just raised $12.8 billion.
Right, they don't need
money.
Right, well, they're selling cigarettes, so, I mean, I don't know, I have these issues as a mother of a teen, these dual devices and how they're sold and how attractive they are. It's disturbing. And it's a nicotine delivery system. They can't keep pretending that it's a healthier version of smoking. It's fascinating. As a parent, you're horrified. And so when you see something like this, they're just buying a product that's a big market, like a big market leader. And so it makes sense for them to do this, as Philip Morris, to do this, because they're not in this business. So they're buying the leader.
No, they're losing their business, obviously, very quickly to Juul, it seems.
Right.